hot. It moved, it broke about that far.
Yeah.
Now News Extra on KNEB at 7:51, brought to you today by Gering Civic Center. And here's Kevin Mooney.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Good morning, everyone. We're talking to Senator John Stinner, kind of post-legislature here. We gave him quite a bit of time to kind of go through everything that happened about a month later here, and now we can kind of go back and see what happened. And I guess one of the things you learned is that it's a very intense process, and you'll probably know more next year when you go back after experiencing what happened this time around, right?
Yeah, I think I'll certainly be more organized and utilize my staff even better than I did. I leaned on them pretty hard this first time around. The first 10 days of the session are about introducing bills, so you have to be organized up front. This summer I'll try to organize some bills. Certainly I'd like to get started on the Heartland Expressway and seeing what's possible there. Those would be some of the areas in property tax, school financing. I'd like to have something put together at least in a draft form so that I can hit the floor running, so to speak. But utilize my staff. That first 2 months are very, very intense. Everybody wants a piece of you. They're pulling on your ears pretty hard. So.
Yeah. Well, you're going to tackle school finance. That's going to be hard to do, school financing.
I don't know what's possible there. I know after being 10 years on the Gering School Board, kind of what makes up the financing. I want to hold a forum with our local people to see what's possible there. Certainly, they need a permanent funding source. Property tax valuations continue to go up, and I think long term we've got to take a look at from the state aspect of funding schools more. And we just got to find a revenue source to do that. So.
Yeah. All right. Very good. I'll be interested to see what you come up with. You're courageous in tackling school finance, that's for sure. All right. Well, let's talk about the budget, because you were on Appropriations Committee, and one of the things you guys did was add money to the property tax credit fund, and you need to do much more, but at least you got some more money in there.
Yeah,
right?
we're at $204 million, and as I researched and said, it's about $700 to $750 million that we need to get back to property tax owners in order to get to the kind of the middle of the pack. So we took the $64 million extra, a little bit of extra at the tail end to get it to $64 million. So it's a pretty good chunk, but we still have a ways to go on that aspect of taxation. The budget-wise, we came out with a 3.1% increase to the floor. We had $48 million of money that the floor could spend on bills that were presented in that session. And they're called A bills, appropriation bills. They spent $45 million of it. We'll have a pretty good rainy day fund, somewhere in the neighborhood of $714 to $720 million in the rainy day fund. So the state's in really good fiscal shape. I think if you look at a 20-year spending average for the state is about 4.4. We were at 3.5, almost 1% under on expenditures, and that's really where we need to be and run our state accordingly, which will give us an opportunity, if we can bring in revenue at about a 4.7 to 5% rate, it'll give you that opportunity to utilize that for taxes.
Yeah. Okay. We'll talk a little bit more about some other stuff right after this.
How about the beautiful Gering Civic Center? With 21 years of event experience,
I
your
got
next
gas
special
price,
event.
tax hike,
How
will do
about
that.
strawberry spinach salad,
Maybe
seasoned roast beef,
some of the bills are passed.
or
We'll mention the
ribeye
definitely
steaks
again,
being
'cause
cooked by
everybody
the
wants
catering
to.
experts.
Everybody wants to
A
know.
large chocolate fountain
That's what I hear more about
Call us
than
at
anything else.
436-6888.
It's a
Visit
big one.
It's a big one.
GeringCivicCenter.com and like us on Facebook. Experts at providing exceptional experiences with
I think
excellent
if you
food.
settled back and looked at the difference of the two.
All right, we're back on News Extra. Senator John Stinner is here, and on News Extra we've talked about some things going on with the legislature. One of the things they did was raise the gas tax a little bit to help counties and cities and so forth. And you felt that was something you talked about even in your campaign you could support, right?
Well, that was one of the only tax that I could support in the campaign, because I thought it was more of a user tax. But the companion bill to the gas tax actually was one that I have in appropriations, and it's still alive, and that's reestablishing the state aid to cities and counties. And this was really toward infrastructure, so it would have gone for bridges and roads. And it had some pretty restrictive language, and I had a lot of support for that bill, but with the gas tax coming up, we suppressed that bill, held it in place. But if you look at a 20-year analysis of what's been happening to the cities and counties, really there's unfunded mandates, and I had a list of about 20 or 23 different unfunded mandates that continues to crowd their budget out. So we felt that the gas tax was the appropriate tax to pass as a permanent funding source for cities and counties. Scottsbluff County has about $24 million of bridges that need to be repaired, some of those being obsolete bridges, about 10 million of those. So it's really a necessary, and also one could look at it in terms of being a cap on property tax asking, because it is a permanent funding source for them. They should have plenty of money in order to get some of those things in good shape over a period of time.
So your A bill, maybe next year, you think you can get it moved on?
I've had some of the county people come to me and said we're not sure what we want to do with that A bill, but it's certainly there to be utilized if we need it.
All right. Death penalty, everybody wants to talk about the death penalty. I know that was a very difficult vote for you. Kind of go through what you went through.
Toughest vote I ever had to make. Certainly spent a lot of time researching everything I could get my hands on. Spent plenty of time. I put together a speech for, against, and neutral. I gave the neutral speech. I really felt at the time that I gave the speech on the floor, it should have been left up to the vote of the people, which eventually it may happen. But a contentious issue, certainly one that I struggled with and decided that the state needed to have the death penalty in place as a proportionate response to those types of crimes.
All right, very good. What you learned maybe out of this whole thing a year later? You go through the whole 9 yards and you go, man, what can I do? You're going to use your staff more, you mentioned, and it's just a tough process, isn't it?
Yeah, you really have to budget your time, and your time is not your own, so you do have to lean on your staff. I think listening skills really need to be emphasized. You got to spend time listening to the people. Doing a lot less talking and more listening, I guess, would be a somewhat takeaway that I would have. But you know, you need to have high energy level, that's for sure, because you're going from 6 a.m. to 10 o'clock at night, and you go do it again.
Yeah, okay. Got 30 seconds real quick. You're going to talk to some folks with the state here over the summer, right?
Yeah, we got the legislative review on wastewater. That's something that we're trying to punch up as far as questions that we need to ask and get answered. Several committees that I'm sitting on, one of them intergenerational poverty. It's a big task force to take a look at what we can do legislatively and policy-wise with the poverty issues that we're confronting in our state. So lots of different people that I want to touch base with, lots of new faces from certainly from the governor's administration. So,
all right, Senator John Stinner with us on News Extra. We appreciate his time.